The screaming always began before the clock struck 3. Not loud at first, just a faint trembling sound that crept through the walls of the mansion like a warning. By the time it grew stronger, the night staff would already be gone, and Andrew Cole would be standing alone in the hallway, staring at his son's door, bracing himself for what came next. Ethan was 9, but his body felt lighter every day, as if something unseen were slowly pulling the life out of him. Doctors came and left with the same calm faces and empty answers. Tests were perfect. Reports were clean. Give it time, they said. But time was the one thing Andrew no longer trusted. 7 nannies had tried. 7 had failed. 1 left after accusing the house of whispering. Another packed her bags before sunrise, refusing to explain. The last one didn't even wait for her pay. She ran out barefoot, tears streaking her face, terrified of a child who barely had the strength to stand. Money built the mansion. Money hired the best care. But money could not stop Ethan from curling into himself every night, gasping as if he were drowning in his own bed. Andrew stopped sleeping. He stopped hoping. The house felt heavier after dark, as if it was holding its breath. Then, on a quiet afternoon when Andrew had given up searching, a new maid arrived. No questions. No fear in her eyes. Just a calm stillness that didn't belong in a house like this. As she stepped inside, she paused, not to admire the wealth but to listen. And for the first time in months, something unseen had noticed Ethan too. The maid's name was Clara. She spoke little, worked steadily, and moved through the mansion as if she already understood its moods. Andrew noticed her presence only because Ethan did. The boy's eyes followed her whenever she passed the hallway, not with fear, but with a quiet curiosity that had been missing for months. Clara never entered Ethan's room without permission. She stayed just outside, wiping railings that were already clean or adjusting flowers that didn't need water. Yet somehow she was always nearby when Ethan's breathing changed. Andrew found this unsettling at first until he realized something else. During those moments, the boy's panic softened. His hands still shook, but the sharp edge of terror faded. One evening, Andrew returned early and stopped short in the living room. Ethan was sitting upright, a bowl of soup balanced on his knees, speaking in full sentences. Clara listened from a distance, nodding as if every word mattered. The sound of his son's steady voice struck Andrew harder than any diagnosis ever had. Later that night, the familiar tension returned. Andrew sat awake, waiting for the breaking point. Midnight passed. Then 2. When the hour arrived, the house remained silent. No cries. No thrashing. Only the soft hum of the air vents. Andrew barely breathed. At dawn, Clara approached him gently. "May I ask something?" she said. "Has anyone ever checked the boy's room itself? Not the child, but the room?" Andrew stared at her, a chill settling in his chest. No one ever had. Andrew dismissed the thought at first. Walls were walls. Rooms were rooms. Doctors examined people, not furniture. Still, Clara's question followed him through the day, echoing louder than the doctor's calm reassurances ever had. That evening he agreed to let her explain. Not because he believed her, but because he had nothing left to lose. Clara asked for permission to stay awake near Ethan's room that night. She did not bring tools or devices, only a notebook and a small lamp. When the house settled into darkness, she sat on the floor outside the door, listening, not with fear but with focus. Andrew watched from the stairs, unsure why her calm unsettled him more than the screams ever had. Just before 3, Clara raised her hand. "There," she whispered. Ethan hadn't cried yet, but the sound was there, a faint vibration, almost like a hum beneath the floorboards. When the boy stirred, the noise deepened, pressing into the silence. Clara placed her palm against the wall and frowned. "It changes when he moves," she said. "As if something responds." Andrew's chest tightened. The moment Ethan was taken into another room, the sound stopped. No shaking. No distress. The boy fell asleep within minutes. Clara wrote quickly, drawing rough lines of the room. "It isn't him," she said carefully. "Something here is overwhelming his senses." Andrew felt anger rise, then fear. If she was wrong, he was indulging false hope. But if she was right, it meant his son had been suffering while everyone looked the other way. Andrew authorized a full inspection the next morning, though he did not tell the specialists why. They checked wiring, ventilation, even the foundation. Everything passed. Perfect again. The word felt cruel now. When they left, Andrew stood in Ethan's room alone, staring at the walls that had witnessed every terrible night. He felt foolish for hoping and angry for almost giving up. Clara returned quietly and asked one more question. "May I remove a few things?" She did not wait for an answer. She began with the heavy curtains, then the thick rug beneath the bed. As the floor was exposed, a faint vibration returned, subtle but steady. Andrew felt it through the soles of his shoes. They traced it to a narrow section near the wall. Clara tapped once, then again. The sound changed. Andrew's pulse surged. Maintenance opened the panel, revealing a concealed unit installed years earlier during renovations. It emitted a low-frequency pulse, harmless to most people, but relentless in a small body. Stronger at night. Stronger in silence. Andrew's knees weakened. The unit had been added after his wife's passing, meant to deter pests and secure the property. No one had thought to test its impact on a child. No one had listened long enough to hear it. When the device was shut down, the house felt different, lighter, as if it had finally exhaled. That night, Ethan slept through till morning. No gasping. No fear. Andrew sat beside the bed and cried quietly, realizing the truth was never hidden. It was simply ignored. The change was not instant, but it was undeniable. Ethan woke with color in his face and hunger in his voice. He asked for breakfast, then for a walk outside, small requests that felt like miracles. Andrew watched every movement, afraid that hope itself might undo the fragile progress. For the first time in years, the mansion filled with daylight instead of dread. Yet doubt lingered. The longtime staff whispered that improvement was temporary, that something like this never ended so simply. Even Andrew questioned it during quiet moments, waiting for the return of fear. Clara, however, never celebrated too early. She adjusted routines, opened windows, encouraged silence where noise once lived, and stayed observant. One afternoon, Andrew finally asked why she noticed what everyone else missed. Clara hesitated before answering. She spoke of growing up in a small apartment beside a factory, where unseen forces affected sleep, focus, and health. When no one listens, she said softly, you learn too. That evening, Ethan laughed for the first time in months. The sound stopped Andrew mid-step, sharp and beautiful, like something rediscovered. Still, as night approached, tension returned. At 2:45, Ethan stirred, breathing unevenly. Andrew's heart pounded. Clara stood calmly watching the boy, counting each breath. Then the moment passed. The night held. Ethan slept on. Andrew realized something then. Saving his son had never been about strength or wealth. It was about attention. And attention once given could change everything. Weeks passed and the mansion slowly transformed. The oppressive silence that had haunted Andrew and Ethan lifted, replaced by soft laughter, casual footsteps, and the warmth of a home rediscovered. Ethan's energy returned in small bursts, like sunlight breaking through clouds after a long storm. Andrew watched him play with toys that had been untouched for months, his heart heavy with gratitude and disbelief. Clara never sought recognition. She moved quietly through the house, tending to meals, organizing rooms, and observing without comment. But Andrew noticed the subtle ways she guided Ethan's recovery. She spoke gently about his fears, asked him to describe sensations no one had thought to notice, and celebrated victories too small for others to see. Each night, she stayed until Ethan fell asleep, listening, waiting, adjusting, protecting. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the palms, Andrew finally confronted her. "How did you know?" he asked, voice thick. Clara paused, choosing her words. "I learned to notice what others ignore. I learned that sometimes, survival isn't about medicine or money. It's about seeing the invisible and being present when no one else is." Andrew looked at his son, who was now laughing softly in his sleep. Tears blurred his vision. The journey had been long, exhausting, and terrifying, but it had led to this: hope restored, a child alive, a home finally whole. He realized then that true care often comes from unexpected places. Wealth could hire nannies, doctors, and specialists, but it took a heart willing to truly see, to stay, and to act to save what really matters. And for Andrew, that heart belonged to Clara, the maid who refused to give up when everyone else had. Ethan's life was no longer a battle lost, but a story of resilience, courage, and the extraordinary power of one attentive soul.